You are watching a special edition of Outnumbered. We are live outside on Fox Square, and as we prepare to mark 20 years since the terror attacks on September 11th, 2001, we're together outdoors with Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, my co-host Emily Campagno, along with Kayleigh McEnany. During this hour, we will look back on that fateful day and where we are as a nation 2 decades later. We'll remember the brave first responders and police officers who made the ultimate sacrifice. And we'll consider what happened to that sense of unity we all felt right after the nation was attacked. Also joining us today is former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus. And in the center virtual seat today, Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor. First, though, let's get to our top story. President Biden announcing sweeping vaccine mandate that impacts the private sector in unprecedented ways. Morgan.
Yeah, so listening to this discussion today, first, every time we talk about COVID, I must say that Kayleigh and my colleagues worked incredibly hard in Operation Warp Speed to get these vaccines done, even whenever it was being politicized from the clips that Kayleigh showed at the beginning. So I always encourage everyone to talk to your primary care doctor and please consider getting the vaccine. It could save your life. However, when I look at this federal mandate from a business perspective, a lot of things come to my mind. First of all, how is this information collected? How is it stored? How do businesses report it to the federal government? Is there penalties if you don't comply? Are you required to fire workers who don't comply? And it's not just the vaccines that have to be, this information, very personal medical information that has to be stored somehow and reported to the federal government. If you choose to do the weekly testing, again, who pays for that test? Does the employee pay for the test? Does the employer pay for the test? I bring up all of these questions because to me, when I listened to this speech yesterday, the thing that first came to my mind was this is a political play. This is a political play to distract from the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. And the reason why I say that is because all of the questions that I just asked that employers around this nation need to be able to understand to do were not spelled out, have not been answered, and that's why you saw a hurried political speech. Last thing I would say, Harris, is I looked up with Reuters this morning which countries require the type of extensive mandate that President Biden issued yesterday. From what I can tell from the Reuters research, it looks like there's about 6 countries who require this. Guess who we're in company with on this mandate? China, Russia, Saudi Arabia are among the few. These are the most extreme mandates that any democracy in the world has issued, more extreme than anything in Western Europe.
President Biden had hoped to mark the 20-year anniversary of 9/11 with the end of America's longest-running war. Instead, his administration is busy, get this, negotiating with the very group that brought us there, with scenes of Taliban brutality and reprisals, women beaten and whipped in the streets during a demonstration in Kabul, and we must warn our viewers about what we are about to show. 2 Afghan journalists left severely battered and bruised after being beaten by Taliban fighters for covering a women's protest. The pair saying they were pummeled with batons, electrical cables, and whips after being detained for several hours by Taliban fighters a day earlier. One of them saying, quote, "The Taliban put his foot on my head, crushed my face against the concrete. They kicked me in the head. I thought they were going to kill me." When he asked why they were being beaten, he said he was told, quote, "You are lucky you weren't beheaded." The other reporter saying, quote, "We are in so much pain that we could not even move." Meanwhile, our own Peter Doocy confronting Jen Psaki over a White House statement that praised the Taliban for being, quote, "businesslike and professional," for allowing an evacuation flight out of Kabul. And Peter had the receipts.
You're saying the Taliban is businesslike and professional. Their interior minister has an FBI wanted poster. He's got a $10 million bounty on his head. What's the business?
We are here to celebrate the return of American citizens who wanted to leave Afghanistan, of legal permanent residents, of Afghans who fought by our side. to Qatar successfully on a Qatari Airlines flight. And in order to get those people out, we had to work with some members of the Taliban to press them and to work in a business-like manner to get them out.
Morgan, on a day when the White House berated unvaccinated people, saying that they will pay the price, the Taliban was praised. But not only that, I'm sure you caught this, Morgan. There was a phone call with China where we were told that it was respectful. China and the Taliban are treated differently than Americans.
Yeah, those readouts are always hard to write, Kaylee, as you remember, after the president or the Secretary of State has a call with the foreign leader. And that one was about as vague as one could possibly be, and also very markedly different from what the Chinese released, I would add. But listen, when you look at, Harris made the point brilliant earlier, when you look at what leverage we have no leverage. We have no military leverage, right, with the Taliban right now. We're not there. We can't, sort of put a gun to the head of the Taliban, right? We have no leverage but economic leverage. And the questions that Harris laid out at the beginning of the segment is what Congress should be asking Secretary Blinken under oath. Next week, he's supposed to testify in front of SFRC, I believe. And exactly what Harris laid out are the questions that should be asked to Secretary Blinken under oath. We know that there are still no announced asylum agreements, right? For example, from these refugees. We don't know where they're going off of U.S. military bases. And so I would just say that, listen, there are so many unanswered questions in this. We need to get to the bottom of it under oath next week, and multiple officials should be deposed.
Tomorrow marks 20 years since the 9/11 attacks, and some college students say schools should change how they teach students about the attacks. A campus reform reporter at the University of Florida asked students for their take. Listen.
When talking about 9/11, what do you think we should avoid?
I think we should avoid a lot of more gruesome facts.
The 9/11 attack should be taught in a way that doesn't really target more who did it, but more how we can move forward.
Avoiding kind of placing blame, because when you get to the more specific factors that were at play, it kind of opens the opportunity for things like Islamophobia and ideas of American exceptionalism.
There's a recent video that came out from the Virginia Department of Education that showcased an American university lecturer, and she basically said that when talking about 9/11, we should avoid talking about American exceptionalism. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. We definitely should, because we don't need more nationalism in this country. I think they should focus on America's faults, not how amazing we are and how we need to be superior, because we're not.
Propagating this idea that our nation is the best no matter what, I would agree that that should be avoided.
Yeah, and Morgan, this educator also saying that it would be highly inappropriate to have students stand and condemn 9/11. What's inappropriate about that?
Well, listen, just goes to show why children need to be educated first and foremost by their parents in the home, right? I mean, obviously, we're going to get a historical education, one would hope, in school. But I learned about Pearl Harbor and the stories of what it was like in World War II from my grandfather who fought there. And so I think it's so important for all of us as parents and as grandparents and aunts and uncles to make sure that we are teaching our children about what actually happened on that day, what happens whenever terrorists are able to plot these attacks. So there's just, when I see those kids in that clip that you just showed, Kaylee, all I see is a bunch of kids that really have a serious lack of home training and also use the word like a million times. I just want to let them all know you sound dumber when you do that.
Yeah, you do.
In the days and weeks following 9/11, there was national unity. And the American flag reflected that feeling, right? We saw it everywhere, on every home. Today, the American flag has somehow become a symbol of protest at sporting events and even on the world stage at the Olympics. But Morgan, as you often talk about, it's also remained the symbol of democracy on the world stage, as at protests against horrific regimes, people still hold on to our flag as a symbol of freedom.
That's right, Emily. You can look at the protests in Hong Kong, in Iran, in Cuba, around the world. When oppressed people long for freedom, the symbol that they hold up is the American flag. And I really wish that some people in our country who don't understand this could almost have a moment to go visit those people and talk to them about why they hold up the American flag. We can always make America a better place. We can always seek reforms and seek to make it a better and more just society. And I don't think anyone's arguing against that. But you also can do it in a respectful way. And I would remind you that this administration continues at the United Nations to really spout some of the most ignorant things about the United States. And that is the symbol that we are showing to the world from our elected representatives.